Over the weekend, we had an interesting message sent out from a member of the Rothschild family, Linda Rothschild, tweeted on February 24th. She said that, not that it matters to anyone but me, she said, but I am deleting my Twitter app after this last tweet to think that Russians have been using all of us to sow discord and destroy America is repulsive to me, she says, and I refuse to take part. The hate and anger on hashtag Twitter is out of control. Hashtag goodbye Twitter, she says. Linda Rothschild obviously gets a lot of criticism every time that she tweets. And you have her here yet again using the same old line, trying to blame Russia. I'm sure she'd be getting a fair amount of criticism with or without this narrative that we have, that the so-called Russian interference is being pushed by Rothschild, Soros, some other allies in the political establishment and the mainstream media. Now, I did a write-up about this tweet and some little bit of an interpretation as well over on Steemit, my blog on steemit.com, @realityreader, my name there. You can follow me. But just want to, again, look at the tweet from Linda Rothschild. Of course, she's a member of the wealthy Rothschild family. She told her followers that she's leaving Twitter because of this hate and anger, she said online. Again, she's attempting to pin the blame on Russia. Once again, the tweet, she said, not that it matters to anyone but me, but I'm deleting my Twitter app after this last tweet to think that Russians have been using all of us to sow discord and destroy America is repulsive to me, and I refuse to take part. The hate and anger on Twitter is out of control. Hashtag goodbye Twitter. Now, a couple other things going on, also quite interesting at the same time that Linda Rothschild is tweeting this out, trying to convince her followers that she's leaving because of so-called Russian interference. It's the story that she's giving. There's also been, at the same time, growing online speculation that Robert Mueller and the FBI's investigation about the alleged Trump-Russia connection, this is the mainstream media is bringing up constantly about this alleged Russian interference. It's largely going on the word of the FBI, and there's been growing evidence that this is a politically motivated distraction, at least in part, led by allies of Soros, Rothschild, and others, and their allies within the deep state. Some of the recent evidence that supports this theory includes a few things. I've spent some time talking about the FBI scandal regarding the political bias of Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. There were the leaked text messages that was evidence of some sort of political motivation behind their involvement on the Mueller investigation. They were key members of the Mueller team, forced to leave the Mueller team. Peter Strzok, had a lot of media outlets also blaming him almost as a scapegoat in a way. I definitely think that there is something shady going on with Peter Strzok, but they were also blaming him for getting Hillary Clinton off the hook, at least having a key role in being one of the people that interviewed Cheryl Mills, Huma Abedin, some of these other people complicit in the destruction of Hillary Clinton's emails, some of the other misconduct that was that she should have gone down for during that investigation. Peter Strzok was a key figure in that investigation, and it does seem like they're kind of blaming this bias on him as an individual, or him and Lisa Page and a few others, when this is something that it seems is quite rampant throughout the FBI. This is a wider part of a wider deep state plot, a lot of people have theorized. There have been other Mueller team members that have shown political bias. There's also been, very recently, and this is, again, ties back to, or there could be an indirect connection to Rothschild, but just earlier this month, there was a lot of discussion about this FISA memo, the memo to be released by Devin Nunes, was leading this. It was released in early February, and it alleges that there was additional wrongdoing by the FBI and the Justice Department, including that they abused their surveillance authority to spy on the Trump campaign, that they were basically working for the Hillary campaign even during the election. So evidence that there was further bias in the deep state, and you had this lead up to this memo. Now, it is interesting, the timing, the release of this memo, this comes just a few months after some other statements from Jacob Rothschild, actually late last year, and I talked about this also previously, some statements from Jacob Rothschild, who in an RIT Capital Partners investors report, a report to some of his own investors, he was talking about how he's basically pulling his investments out of the U.S. economy. Was one quote from him in the report. This was from Rothschild last year. They said the period of monetary accommodation may well be coming to an end. Geopolitical problems remain widespread and are proving increasingly difficult to resolve. We therefore retain a moderate exposure to equity markets and have diversified our asset allocation towards equity investments where value creation is driven by some identifiable catalyst or which are exposed to longer-term positive structural trends. He went on to explain that the Rothschilds are moving most of their investments outside of the United States. They're taking money out of the U.S. and putting it into Far Eastern markets. Another quote from the report. He explains this. He says, we have a particular interest in investments which will benefit from the impact of new technologies and Far Eastern markets. It's influenced by the growing demand from Asian consumers. So you had Rothschild openly coming out, basically saying that he's betting against the U.S. economy. You also have this growing speculation that there is a deep state plot, basically, that was in favor of Hillary Clinton going back to the election, and that it is possible. Actually, SJT Report is another channel that I follow on YouTube. They highlighted that just one day after the Nunes FISA memo, which again was very damaging, potentially damaging for the FBI and other Soros Rothschild allies in the deep state, just one day after this document was released, the Dow plummeted 666 points. This obviously seems like it could be some kind of a signal. Again, the timing just the morning after the release of this memo, early in February. This was February 2nd. I believe it was the morning of February 2nd, or it could have been February 1st, actually, that the memo was released. The Nunes memo, which again was against the FBI. And the next day, basically the next day, the Dow plummets exactly, it's 665.75 points. All the news media rounded it off to this 666 point plummet. Seems like quite the coincidence, the timing, that number being used, of course. So that raises some other questions, at least the SJT report. I thought it was an interesting video. You can go back on their channel. They do have some questions about that as well. Is it possible that it's a message from the elites in response to this unwanted pressure on Rothschild allies and the FBI, which culminated in this memo release? That's definitely a theory that's been presented as well. Now, obviously, also, while all this is going on, you have increasing online censorship. They're continuing to push mass censorship on all major social media platforms. And this is being led by members of the mainstream media and the political establishment, more Rothschild and Soros allies within the political establishment, of course. Another quote that I had, again, mentioned before in another article, I think it's worth maybe referencing again, that obviously, I mean, you have years that have been spent now by the Rothschilds and Soros and others where they've cultivated these relationships in the mainstream media to help spread their own propaganda, basically, and to tightly control the message. The internet, of course, has taken this power away from them and given a voice to the masses, which has threatened their stranglehold on the media. We're seeing establishment politicians and the mainstream media working together to push censorship back into the internet and shut down this new threat to the establishment. I brought up in a previous article some statements from John Podesta. I've mentioned this a couple times, where he recently took a trip to Norway. And he basically admits that this is also on his agenda, pushing further mass online censorship to manipulate public opinion. The exact quote from Podesta, this was from last year also, he said, we adopted the social media strategy that President Obama effectively used. which Bernie Sanders effectively used, which was to talk to their core supporters online. He said he blamed Hillary Clinton's failure during the election instead on the fact that they, quote, left naked the ability on Facebook and other sites for, quote, negative messaging to bombard into those critical places. So basically that he gave people too much freedom to have discussions on Facebook, which would be negative towards Hillary Clinton, Podesta, or other members of the political establishment. Podesta working to reverse this. He's called for new censorship measures online. He's calling it targeting fake news. And of course, we have this ongoing narrative pushed in the tweets. You see this in the tweets from Rothschild herself, saying that the Russian influence, because of this so-called Russian influence, as they say, they give that as yet another excuse why we apparently need further censorship online. So what is Rothschild doing here? Is this another signal to the elites? Will she be returning to social media? I'm sure at some point she will. Are they going to be waiting until some more censorship measures go through and they can effectively silence some of her critics before she comes back? Possibly. Let me know what you think is happening. I will continue to post on my blog over on Steemit. I know it's been a few weeks actually since I posted there, but I will start posting again more regularly. I'll continue to make videos here as well. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you could leave a like on this video, it's greatly appreciated, and I will report again shortly. Thanks again.